Far beyond the familiar stars of the Milky Way, in a region of the galaxy bathed in blue and violet light, there existed a race that the universe itself whispered about in fear. They were enormous, taller than mountains, their bodies glowing with golden energy, and their presence could bend entire worlds to their will. They called themselves the gods. Every civilization that had ever encountered them trembled at their feet. Planets flourished only if the gods chose to allow it, and those who defied them simply vanished, erased as if they had never existed. Their power was absolute, and their names were feared in every corner of known space. Among all the civilizations that quivered in their shadow, humans were regarded as insignificant, primitive, weak, a small species barely 2 centuries into interstellar travel. They were barely noticed, a flicker of life on a fragile blue planet. Other alien races often scoffed at the humans. They are not even worth the attention of our scouts, they said. They cannot survive beyond their solar system, let alone challenge the gods. But humans had a quality the galaxy had not yet understood. They refused to surrender. They endured. They adapted. Humanity had faced extinction, climate disasters, plagues, and endless wars, and yet they survived. They had learned that sometimes the universe underestimated them, and that could become their greatest strength. On Earth, the planet's leaders had watched the reports of the gods' fleet gathering at the edge of human space. Their cities, shining with human ingenuity, trembled at the thought of the massive golden warships that dwarfed entire continents. Scientists and politicians debated the odds, yet fear alone could not dominate the human spirit. Captain Elena Voss, commanding officer of the warship Indomitable, stood before the United Earth Council, her gaze steady, her hands clasped behind her back. She had seen humans achieve the impossible before, and she believed the impossible could happen again. "We do not kneel," she said, her voice calm but burning with intensity. "We do not submit to fear. The gods may call themselves divine, but they are not invincible. If they come, we will face them, and we will show them what humans are capable of." Her words shocked the council. Many whispered that she was reckless, that her courage bordered on foolishness. But Elena did not see foolishness, she saw truth. Humans were not the strongest in firepower. They were not the fastest or the most advanced. But their strength lay in their creativity, in their unity, in their unwillingness to accept the impossible as final. Where other species saw a wall, humans saw a door. Where others saw defeat, humans saw opportunity. In the quiet of her quarters, Elena looked at a photograph of Earth from space, a fragile, pale blue orb surrounded by the infinite black of the universe. It reminded her of what was at stake, not just survival, but hope, courage, and the right to exist. She whispered to herself, "We are small, but we endure. We are weak, but we fight. And one day the universe will know our name." Far beyond Earth, the gods' fleet loomed like a living storm, their golden ships reflecting the light of distant stars. They had never faced a species like humans before, a species that refused to bow, that refused to vanish quietly. In their arrogance, they assumed victory would be effortless. They did not understand fear, but they also did not understand determination, the kind of determination that burned quietly in the heart of every human being. The galaxy held its breath. A storm was coming, a storm that no one could foresee. And at the center of that storm was a single warship, carrying the dreams, the courage, and the unstoppable will of humanity. The name of that ship would echo across the stars, and the gods, who called themselves invincible, would soon learn that no being is untouchable when faced with the unyielding heart of a human. The gods' fleet moved like a shadow across the outer rim of human space. Their massive ships glowed with golden energy, each one bristling with weapons that could destroy entire planets. Systems across the sector had already fallen in silence. Worlds that resisted were erased, leaving nothing behind but cold emptiness. Humanity watched, tense and fearful, yet unwilling to surrender. On Earth, the United Earth Council convened an emergency meeting. Holographic projections of the approaching fleet filled the chamber, turning the room into a swirling sea of gold and light. Scientists and military leaders debated furiously, their voices rising and falling with tension. Some urged surrender. "We cannot fight them," one advisor said. "We are not ready. We will be destroyed." Others demanded negotiation. "Perhaps we can find a way to make peace," another argued. "Perhaps we can survive if we only submit." Amid the chaos, Captain Elena Voss stood quietly, listening. She did not flinch. She did not hesitate. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, studied the projections. She had seen humanity survive worse, and she knew this was no different. Humans had always faced impossible odds, yet they endured. It was in their nature. And in her heart she knew the truth. Fear would not save them, but courage could. When the room fell silent, Elena spoke. "We do not kneel," she said firmly. "We do not beg for mercy. They call themselves gods, but they are not immortal. They are strong, yes, but they are not invincible. We have the power to survive, to fight, and to show them that humans are not to be underestimated." A hush fell over the council chamber. Many gasped, shocked at her audacity. Others frowned, worried about her recklessness. But there was a fire in her voice, a confidence born not from arrogance, but from truth. Humanity was not perfect. They were not the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced, but humans were survivors. They adapted, they created, and when cornered, they fought harder than anyone else in the galaxy. "We have built ships," Elena continued, "and we have trained our crews. We have weapons, strategies, and courage. One human warship can make a difference. One human mind can change the course of history. If we act together, if we refuse to bow, we can survive. And we can show the galaxy that fear is not the end. Hope is." The council hesitated, torn between fear and the undeniable truth in her words. Some whispered, "She is reckless, too bold. Perhaps she is right." Others argued, "This is madness. We cannot hope to fight gods." Elena knew the debate would not convince everyone. She had to act. She turned away from the projections and walked to the landing platform where the Indomitable awaited. Her crew, 500 of the finest men and women humanity had trained, stood ready. They had heard the warnings. They knew the odds. And yet, their eyes were steady, their hands ready. They were ready to follow her into the storm. As the Indomitable prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Elena looked down at the blue planet below. The cities, the forests, the oceans, all that she had sworn to protect, glimmered in the sunlight. Her heart ached with the weight of responsibility, but also burned with determination. Humanity's survival depended on more than technology or firepower. It depended on courage, unity, and the refusal to bow to fear. The God's ambassador broadcast, a final warning across human space: kneel or be erased. We are eternal. You are insignificant. Resistance is meaningless. Elena pressed a hand against the cool surface of the command console and whispered to herself, almost as a promise, "We are not insignificant. We will fight, and we will endure. One day the universe will see that humans are unstoppable." With that, the Indomitable slipped into the black void of space, leaving Earth behind. The storm was coming, and at the heart of it was humanity's courage, small but unyielding, ready to challenge the so-called gods who had ruled the stars for too long. The Indomitable cut through the cold blackness of space like a silver blade, carrying 500 souls, each one filled with a mixture of fear, determination, and hope. Every crew member knew the stories of the gods' power. They had seen reports of entire fleets crushed without mercy, of worlds disappearing in blinding light. But fear had a strange way of sharpening humans instead of breaking them. The closer they moved toward the outer rim, the more Elena felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, yet her resolve only strengthened. The ship was smaller, older, and less powerful than many vessels the gods commanded. Its engines were loud and unpolished, its armor scratched from decades of use, and its weapons modest compared to the golden fleet awaiting them. Yet, what it lacked in size and energy, it made up for in ingenuity. Every turret had been modified, every maneuver tested, every system optimized for survival. Elena had insisted on it. In her mind, the difference between victory and destruction was not firepower, it was creativity. It was thinking where no one else thought, acting when others hesitated, turning weakness into strength. As they passed the first stars of the gods' territory, scouts reported massive warships ahead, each larger than entire human cities, glowing with terrifying energy. They moved like living mountains, their weapons capable of tearing through planets. Elena studied the readouts and quietly gave commands. Prepare the decoys. Run simulations for every attack pattern. I want every crew member ready to adapt. Instantly. Her crew worked in silence, hands moving with precision, hearts pounding with anticipation. For most, this was the first time they would see real battle. Not drills, not simulations, but the kind of fight that could end everything in moments. Some felt fear, but Elena had taught them well. Fear was natural, but courage was what mattered. And human courage, she knew, could become a storm even the gods had never prior. The journey through the outer rim was tense. Every star seemed colder, every silence heavier. At night, when the hum of the engines filled the ship, Elena walked the corridors, speaking to crew members quietly. She encouraged them, reminded them of humanity's long history of survival. "We are small," she said to one young officer, "but we endure. We are weaker in many ways, but we fight harder than anyone else. Do not underestimate what humans can do when we refuse to give up." The ship's communication systems picked up signals from other human outposts. They were sending warnings, tracking the gods' fleet and preparing defenses, yet no human vessel had dared enter the gods' space until now. Elena felt the eyes of Earth, of all humanity, upon her and her crew. The weight of hope pressed upon her chest like a physical force, but she bore it proudly. She would carry this responsibility, just as humanity had always carried the impossible before. In the quiet moments before entering the gods' territory, she visited the bridge and gazed out into the infinite black. Stars glittered like scattered diamonds, and in their light, she imagined the countless civilizations who had already fallen. She whispered softly, not to anyone in particular, "We may be small, but we endure. We may be outmatched, but we are not defeated. One day they will see us and they will know the truth about humans." And in that silent promise, the indomitable moved forward, faster than hope itself. Ahead lay impossible odds, the looming presence of gods who thought themselves untouchable, and a battle that could change the course of history. But in the hearts of Elena and her crew, a flame burned brighter than any star. Courage. It was small, fragile, yet unbreakable, and it was all humans needed to face the storm that awaited them. The journey was not just through space. It was through fear, through doubt, through the shadow of what seemed impossible. And with every passing light year, the crew of the Indomitable learned something vital. Humans might be fragile, but their spirit was unshakable, and that spirit would be the weapon no god could ever anticipate. The void of space trembled as the Indomitable approached the edge of the gods' territory. Massive ships glimmered with golden energy, their surfaces brighter than suns, their weapons radiating destructive force. The crew of the human warship stared in awe, but fear did not paralyze them. Elena stood on the bridge, her hands firm on the controls, her eyes scanning the fleet. "This is it," she said quietly. "Remember, we may be small, but we are clever. We may be outgunned, but we can survive. Trust each other and trust yourselves." The first attack came suddenly. Energy beams tore across the darkness, slicing through empty space with deadly precision. The Indomitable shuddered under the impact, and alarms blared. Crew members rushed to their stations, executing every drill Elena had trained them for. Despite the enormous disparity, the humans were not panicked. Every eye was sharp, every hand steady. They knew that survival would depend on their wits more than brute force. The gods' fleet was terrifying. Ships larger than human cities moved, like living titans, their weapons capable of leveling planets in seconds. They called themselves gods, and their arrogance was evident in every movement. But humans had something no god had considered: unpredictability. Elena's crew used decoy drones, sudden maneuvers, and careful precision to avoid annihilation. They darted through asteroid fields, shot energy pulses at weak points, and vanished from sensors faster than the gods could predict. In the command room of the gods' flagship, whispers of disbelief spread. How can such a small vessel survive? One officer asked. It should be destroyed already. But the Indomitable kept moving, weaving through destruction like a silver thread in a golden storm. Elena's mind raced, calculating angles, anticipating the enemy, turning the gods' confidence into confusion. Hours stretched into what felt like days. Human ingenuity met divine technology in a dance of survival. Every volley fired by the Indomitable struck calculated points. Engine, cores, power conduits, energy shields, where even the gods had made mistakes. The colossal enemy ships shuddered with each hit, their golden glow flickering as if surprised by the audacity of a single human vessel. Amid the chaos, Elena walked from station to station, offering words of calm and encouragement. Keep your focus. Watch for patterns. Remember, they expect fear. We give them strategy. Her crew, inspired by her calm, precise leadership, began to fight with perfect coordination. Every human action became a ripple in the golden tide, a defiance that the gods had never faced. One massive ship, towering over the Indomitable like a living mountain, fired a beam that would have destroyed a planet. Elena calculated the trajectory in seconds. Evasive maneuvers now. The crew obeyed instantly. The ship twisted and turned, narrowly escaping the blast, and in return, they fired a carefully aimed strike at the giant vessel's energy core. Sparks erupted. The massive ship groaned as alarms blared across its bridge. For the first time, the gods began to hesitate. Their aura of invincibility cracked, even if only slightly. Whispers of fear, disbelief, and frustration filled their command bridges. One officer turned to another, voice trembling. No creature should survive this. No creature, and not even a human. Elena knew the battle had just begun, but a small victory had already been won. The Indomitable, against all odds, had survived its first encounter with the gods. The humans had learned that size and strength could be challenged by courage, precision, and creativity. And somewhere deep in the hearts of the Golden Titans, a seed of doubt had been planted, one that would grow and spread as long as humans refused to surrender. Even in the blackness of space, lit only by the deadly beams of battle, hope burned brighter than any weapon. One small human ship, fragile yet unstoppable, had proven that even gods were not untouchable. And in that truth, the battle for the galaxy's future had truly begun. The battle had raged for hours, yet the Indomitable remained in the heart of the gods' fleet. Its hull was scorched, its engines groaned under the strain, but the human crew refused to surrender. Every human on board knew that their fight was not just for survival, it was for hope, for the belief that even the smallest could challenge the greatest. Elena stood at the bridge, her eyes fixed on the largest of the golden warships, the flagship that commanded the entire fleet. Its presence alone seemed to dominate the void, but Elena did not flinch. "We've made them hesitate," she said, her voice calm but electric with determination. "They think they are invincible. They do not know what humans are capable of. Let's show them." Her words sparked renewed energy in the crew. They adjusted every system, calculated every trajectory, and prepared for a strike that could change the course of the battle. Unlike the gods who relied on sheer power, humans relied on cunning. They had learned to see weakness where others saw only strength, and now every human on board was ready to act as one. The flagship moved with arrogant confidence, believing it could crush the tiny human vessel with a single strike. Its golden weapons fired in sweeping arcs, tearing through the vacuum, obliterating anything that crossed its path. Yet Elena anticipated every move, weaving the Indomitable through space. Like a silver thread in a storm of gold, every beam missed, every missile was evaded, and in the gaps left by the overconfidence of the gods, the humans found their openings. "Target the core," Elena commanded. "Every weapon on the core. Precision fire only." The crew obeyed, without hesitation, firing missiles, lasers, and energy pulses at the flagship's weak points. Sparks erupted along its hull, energy conduits overloaded, and for the first time the golden light of the ship flickered like a dying star. Across the fleet, whispers of disbelief spread. "Impossible," one god muttered. "No being should survive. Not like this." Another added, "It cannot be mere humans." Their arrogance faltered, replaced by confusion and fear. The illusion of godhood, which had once seemed absolute, began to crumble before their eyes. Elena's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a fierce pride. Every crew member was performing flawlessly, trusting her and each other. The Indomitable moved closer, striking repeatedly at the flagship's vital points. Finally, a massive explosion rocked the enemy vessel, sending a shockwave through the fleet. Its golden light shattered, and debris scattered like falling stars. For the first time, the gods hesitated. Their fleets, once unstoppable, faltered as doubt spread. Systems that had been enslaved began to rise in rebellion, inspired by what a single human warship had achieved. The galaxy was witnessing something no one thought possible: the fallibility of gods. Elena allowed herself a brief smile. She did not celebrate. There was still much work to be done, but she understood the magnitude of what had happened. One human vessel, against all odds, had broken the illusion of invincibility. One human crew, united by courage and ingenuity, had shown the universe that strength was not always measured in size or energy. She turned to her crew, her eyes burning with pride and resolve. "We've shown them the truth," she said softly. "Humans are not weak. Humans endure. Humans fight. And today the galaxy has seen that even gods can fall when faced with courage that refuses to surrender." As the debris of the shattered flagship floated silently in space, the Indomitable continued its path, battered but unbroken. The humans on board knew that the battle was far from over, but they also knew that hope had been rekindled. Shattered the illusion of invincibility, and in doing so, they had given the galaxy a reason to believe in the impossible. The storm was not yet finished, but the tide had begun to turn, and for the first time, humanity had proven that even against the greatest power in the universe, one small determined species could make a difference. The galaxy had begun to stir. News of the Indomitable's triumph spread faster than light itself, carried by human outposts, freighters, and communication arrays. Systems that had lived under the shadow of the gods now dared to hope. Even the smallest colonies, once trembling at the thought of divine retribution, whispered the same question: if one human ship could destroy a godship, what else could humanity achieve? Elena and her crew felt the weight of history on their shoulders. Their ship, battered and scarred, had survived the impossible. They had shattered the image of invincibility the gods had built over millennia. But victory brought no arrogance. Every human on board understood the cost of defiance. They had seen friends fall, shields fail, and weapons overheat. Survival had required not just courage, but trust in each other, in their captain, and in the unyielding human spirit. Across the stars, the gods regrouped. Their fleets, shaken by the loss of their flagship, were no longer the flawless, untouchable forces they had believed themselves to be. They attempted to intimidate and punish, but doubt had taken root. Their servants, once loyal to fear, now hesitated. Rebellion flickered in the hearts of those who had lived in submission. And humans, they pressed on, relentless and unstoppable, striking with strategy, daring and unity. Elena looked out at the horizon of space from the bridge of the Indomitable. The void stretched endlessly, a canvas of darkness streaked with stars, yet she no longer saw it as empty. It was alive with possibility, with allies who had dared to rise, with planets that had begun to reclaim their freedom. "This is only the beginning," she said softly, almost to herself. "We fight not for conquest, but for hope. And hope cannot be destroyed. The human fleet, inspired by the courage of one ship, began to coordinate attacks against the remaining god vessels. Smaller ships struck strategic targets, weakening supply lines and disabling energy conduits. Planets that had been enslaved sent resistance fighters into orbit, using every weapon humans could manufacture. The gods were powerful, but they had underestimated the unpredictability of humans, their ability to improvise, to adapt, and to inspire. Back on the Indomitable, Elena gathered her crew. Their faces were tired, scarred, but lit with pride. "We've shown them the truth," she said, "that fear cannot dominate courage. That strength is not measured only in size or energy. Humanity is alive because we refuse to surrender. And now, the galaxy has begun to see it too." Her words resonated beyond the walls of the ship. Humans in distant colonies intercepted transmissions, watched the battle unfold, and felt hope bloom in their hearts for the first time. Alien races once submissive to the gods sent messages of gratitude and solidarity. A wave of unity began to spread across systems, carried on the idea that one determined species could inspire change. The gods, once arrogant and untouchable, were now forced to retreat. Their fleets were damaged, their authority weakened. Doubt and fear rippled through their ranks. The illusion of divine invincibility had been destroyed, replaced by the realization that humans were clever, unyielding, and unpredictable. Elena felt a mixture of relief and solemn pride. The battle was far from over, but the first cracks had appeared in the facade of eternity. Humanity had survived, and they had inspired the galaxy to believe that even the greatest power could be challenged. In the quiet of the bridge, Elena allowed herself a moment to reflect. The stars glimmered like distant promises, and she understood that the Indomitable was more than a warship. It was a symbol of courage, unity, and the unbreakable human spirit. And as the galaxy watched, humans began to reclaim their place among the stars, not as weaklings, but as equals capable of defying the impossible. The reckoning had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven one undeniable truth. Courage, determination, and hope could topple even the so-called gods. The battle was over, but the stars still burned with echoes of the conflict. The Indomitable floated among the remnants of shattered godships, its hull scarred and smoking yet unbroken. Crew members moved through the corridors silently, exhausted but proud. They had faced a force that had once been called invincible and had survived. More than that, they had shattered the illusion of godhood itself. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge, gazing at the distant glow of planets finally free from fear. She felt a mixture of relief, pride, and the weight of responsibility. Humanity had survived the impossible, but the work had only just begun. The galaxy had witnessed a small species defy the greatest power it had ever known, and now countless eyes were on humanity. Some looked with hope, some with envy, but all would remember this moment. For the first time, humans were no longer just a primitive species struggling to survive. They were a force to be reckoned with. Elena's heart swelled with quiet pride as she surveyed her crew. Each one had fought with courage, cleverness, and unity. Each one had trusted in their own abilities and in each other. Together they had done what no one thought possible. They had faced the gods and endured. Messages began arriving from distant systems, messages of gratitude, admiration, and solidarity. Planets that had cowered under the gods' shadow now sent fleets, armies, and supplies to join the human effort. For the first time, the galaxy began to see humans not as fragile, insignificant creatures, but as beings capable of hope, endurance, and extraordinary courage. Elena turned to her first officer, a young woman named Mara, whose hands trembled slightly from exhaustion. "We've changed everything," Elena said softly. "Not just for us, but for every world that thought it was too small to fight. Humanity has shown the truth. Courage matters more than size, determination more than strength. We endure. That is our power." Mara nodded, her eyes shining. "They'll never forget this, Captain," The galaxy will never forget what humans can do. Elena smiled faintly, her gaze returning to the stars. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. The gods were not gone. They were wounded, humiliated, and angry. But they had been shown that humans were not a species to be toyed with. And for the first time in history, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, even if slightly, in favor of hope, courage, and determination. The Indomitable lifted off, moving toward a new mission: to unite allies, defend the vulnerable, and continue to prove that humans were unstoppable when they refused to surrender. Elena walked the bridge slowly, taking in the silence, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. It was not just a victory in battle, it was a victory of spirit, proof that even in the face of unimaginable odds, humans could endure and inspire. As the ship soared through the stars, Elena whispered a quiet promise to the galaxy. We are small, but we endure. We are fragile, but we fight. And one day, every being in this universe will know the truth. Humans are unstoppable because we never give up, and we never bow to fear. The galaxy was changing. Systems once enslaved were rising, inspired by a species that refused to surrender. Alien civilizations that had once trembled now dared to hope. And humanity, the small blue and green planet that had once been overlooked, had claimed its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as symbols of courage, endurance, and the unyielding human spirit. A new dawn was rising, painted across the galaxy in the glow of distant suns. And in that light, one truth shone brighter than any weapon, any god, or any fleet. Humans endure, humans inspire, and humans are unstoppable.